Okay, the purpose of this video is, uh, first of all, to help you distinguish between some terms that are very similar, uh, two terms that you're familiar with now. I want to make sure that you understand the difference. Students often will use them interchangeably when they're not interchangeable. It's fairly important distinction, and then introduce you to a new term that is like those two terms that you are already supposed to be familiar with. Um, and we're using this little model, this example, where you're earning $15 per hour for mowing lawns and $10 per hour washing windows. You want to make $450 in a week, and we have this line segment, a segment of a line that is the graph of this equation, 15x plus 10y equals 450, where uh, where the x-axis represents the number of hours you spend mowing lawns, and the y-axis represents the number of hours you spend washing windows. And this line represents combinations of, oops, I thought I had that locked. I'll lock it down right now. This line represents possible combinations of hours mowing and hours washing that would earn $450. Because every point on this line, you'd earn $450 if you, for example, this point here. This point here is the point where 10 is an x coordinate, number of hours mowing lawns. So 10 hours mowing lawns, how many hours would you need to wash windows to earn $450 if you spend 10 hours mowing lawns? Well, the 10 hours mowing lawns would earn you $15 per hour times 10 hours, $150. So that 10 hours of mowing corresponds to $150. You need $300 more dollars. So how many hours would you have to spend washing windows to earn $300? 30 hours. Now, this 10 is a value of which variable? This 10 is a value of x, and we call that 10, we call it an x coordinate. We call the 30 a y coordinate. Now, this arrow is pointing at this line here, which is comprises the coordinate plane. This line and this line together create our coordinate plane. Now, this vertical line here, what do we call it? Hopefully you've got that right in your head. We call it the y-axis. And this horizontal number line, we call that the x-axis. Okay? Now, this point here is a very special point on this graph because it's the point on the graph that is on the y-axis. So what do we know about this point? We know that we know one of the coordinates of this point, because what's true about every point on the y-axis? Every point on the y-axis has an x-coordinate of 0. In fact, the equation of the y-axis is x equals 0. So we know the x-coordinate of that point. X equals 0. And, well, I'll hold off on that. So now, if 0 hours, remember that's the x coordinate is 0. That means 0 hours are spent mowing lawns. If 0 hours are spent mowing lawns, then how many hours would have to be spent washing windows to earn $450? A little mental math tells me that that would be 45 hours. You'd have to spend washing windows to earn $450. 0 hours mowing, 45 hours washing. Now, this 45, it's a y coordinate, but it's a special y coordinate. It is called the y-intercept. It is the y coordinate where the graph intercepts the y-axis. And we could call it the value of y when x equals 0. The value of y on the graph when the x coordinate is 0. Now, this point down here. What do we know about this point? This point is on the x-axis. So therefore, we know that every point on the x-axis has the same y-coordinate. What is the y-coordinate of any point on the x-axis? Every point on the x-axis has a y-coordinate of 0. We know that the y-coordinate of this point here is 0 because it's on the x-axis. So that means 0 hours washing windows. If no time is spent washing windows, how many hours would need to be spent mowing lawns? 15 times what equals 450? Hopefully the math tells you that it's 30. So if this special y-coordinate is called the y-intercept, then what do you suppose this special x-coordinate is called? Of course, it's called the x-intercept. And if the y-intercept is the value of y when x equals 0, the x-intercept is the x-coordinate, or the value of x, when y equals 0. Now, to find an x-intercept, you would simply substitute 0 for y and solve for x. To find the y-intercept, you would simply substitute 0 for x and solve for y. And I've got a couple of other videos that will give an example of doing just that. I just showed you doing a little bit of easy mental math, how I found the 45 and how I found the 30 there. I hope those terms, you become comfortable with those terms. The y-intercept is a special y-coordinate. It's a value on the y-axis. Likewise with the x-intercept. Hope that's helpful. Get those terms straight.